This boy was running fast. He was a happy boy down by the side of the deep sea side. But when he saw the pirate coming close, he was very frightened. The moon and the stars were out that night, and when he saw that it was a lady pirate, he was frightened. A lady pirate with a little monkey on her shoulder. He wanted to laugh. He thought, pirates have parrots on their shoulders. On his island there were lots of parrots, and he was a good boy, a happy boy, who looked after all of those beautiful animals. As he was looking, so frightened, the lady pirate was getting closer. She looked. She started to pull some fruit off the tree. Ha, 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 ha. Can you do that with me? Ha, 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 said the lady pirate. I'm going to steal all of this fruit. And a friend of the boy, a lovely green parrot, swooped down towards this lady pirate and took the fruit from out of her mouth, took it away from out of her hands. And the strangest thing happened in all of this world. The roughest, toughest lady pirate started to cry. That green bird has stolen my fruit. The boy looked. You're supposed to be rough and tough. Usually I am, but I didn't like the way that bird stole things from me. Can you all cry with me? Ready? The boy couldn't stop himself. He looked and he laughed. Even the little monkey on the side of her shoulder started to laugh too. She could always go and get some more. He looked and said, why don't we do something like this? We can share the fruit. Share? I've never had to share anything in my life. But she looked at the boy. It's easy. You take enough for 2 people and share it. And the lady pirate sat down. Can you sit down? Sat down. And the boy sat down, and they shared it out, not just between her and him, but with the lovely green parrot and the little monkey. And they all sat there, and they shared the fruit, and for the first time in her life, the lady pirate shared. She stopped crying, pirate tears. She started to smile. She said, don't you tell nobody that I shared anything with anybody. And the boy crossed his heart. Can you promise? Cross your heart. And he crossed his heart and promised that he never would tell anyone. But he loved the idea of seeing a pirate cry. There was an island, a treasure island, and in the middle of the treasure island there was a tall palm tree with beautiful long green leaves at its top. Stuck on this treasure island there was the roughest, toughest pirate that you ever did see. He'd been shipwrecked in that place, and on that coconut tree all that came off it were coconuts. Coconuts that were round and hard and filled with sweet and juicy milk. And if there was one thing that this roughest, toughest pirate did not like, it was coconut and coconut milk. He would look and he would think, oh, I ate this coconut. I ate coconut milk. I ate coconut itself. I wish that I could have a drink of creamy milk or even a piece of cheese. I'd love to have a piece of cheese, he would say to himself. And all he could think of was drinking milk, cool, white and creamy. And as he sat there in the shade of that tree, that palm tree, he could see that there was a boat with a huge brown sail coming ever closer towards him. And he thought to himself, oh, I'm going to be saved. I'll be saved. I'll be saved from this island, and I hope that they've got milk and cheese on board. I'd do anything. I'd give up all of my treasure if I could just have a piece of cheese. And when the boat landed by the side of that island, there was a woman pirate on board. She was rough and she was tough. And he looked. He said, I hope you got some cheese on board of your ship. I ain't had no cheese for nigh on 3 years. Oh, yes, I've got some cheese, said the woman pirate. Of course I've got cheese. I love cheese, but what would you do if I asked if you would pay me for this cheese? I'd give you my treasure. No, you've got to give me something other than that. I want you to say that I am the roughest and the toughest pirate on all of the 7 seas. She took out a huge lump. Oh, it was the best looking cheese he'd ever seen. It was about the size of a fist, and she started to cut some pieces off. Oh, this cheese, how salty it is. He licked at his lips. Oh, I'd like to have a piece of that cheese. She said, all you have to do is tell me that I am the roughest and toughest pirate. No, I'll give you my treasure, but I won't say you're rough and tough. She took another piece from this huge block. This cheese is so wonderful. Cheese for me, it's lovely. He started to lick at his lips. He couldn't stop himself. All you've got to do is tell me I'm the roughest, toughest pirate. All right then, you're the roughest and toughest pirate in the world. She started to laugh. Can I tell you something? And it was then that he looked at her mouth, and he could see there was foam at the side. She was frothing at the mouth. There were bubbles coming from out of her mouth. I didn't really have any cheese. This isn't cheese. This is a piece of soap. But I just wanted you to tell me that I was the roughest and toughest pirate. He gasped to think that he'd been fooled, and then he thought about it. She must be rough and tough if she would pretend to eat a piece of soap. The king of the fish. Do the same as me. There was a man, everybody do it now, and he was tall, and he was strong, and he lived by the side of the sea. And when he lived in that place, every day, do it with me, when the sun came up, he took his net, get hold of that net with me, and he threw it out. Ready? And he pulled, 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 and he caught fish inside of the net. But one day, all he could see was one fish. You're very good at this. Everybody show me. One fish. It was as big as your hand. Show me how big it was. It had round golden eyes. It had huge red fins. And it had a crown on its head. And when the fisherman looked at the fish, he said, that fish is too small. What did he say?
That fish is too small.
Ready? And he took it and he threw it. Make the noise with me. And down it came. And before the fish hit the water, it turned around and said, thank you, fisherman. What did it say?
Thank you, fisherman.
He couldn't believe it. The fish could talk. He jumped up and he ran. Can you run with me? And he ran all of the way home, and there was his wife, and he went, wife, wife, wife. You don't need to stamp your feet. Wife, wife, wife. I only caught one fish. Do it with me. It was as big as my hand. It had round golden eyes. It had big red fins. It had a crown on its head. And when I threw it in the water, it said, thank you, fisherman. What did it say?
Thank you, fisherman.
His wife looked at him and went, please tell me you didn't throw it away. He said, I did. What did he say? I did. She looked at him and went, you silly man. Can you do that with me? You silly man. You've thrown away the king of the fish. He can give us things. Go and ask the king of the fish for a new house. Fold your arms. The fisherman said, I can't do that. Do that with me. I can't do that. And his wife got angry. Show me your angry faces. Ready? And he ran to the side of the sea, and when he got there, do this with me, tap your knees. He said, flat fish, flounder, king of the sea, grant a wish for my wife, not for me. Do it. First he saw the crown, then he saw the eyes, then he saw the fins, and the king of the fish was smiling. Show me a fish's smile. Pretty good since I don't have lips. I've got to tell you this. He looked, and the fisherman watched, and the king of the fish said, "Well, fisherman," what did he say?
Well, fisherman.
"What do you want?" "It's not for me." Whack your fingers like your mums and dad. "It's not for me, it's for my wife. She wants a new house." Hands like this. If that's what she wants, then that's what she'll get. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Do that with me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And when he got back, there was a beautiful new house. Draw that house in the air with me. A beautiful new house. And he said to his wife, thumbs, you ready? "Wife, wife, wife." Do that with me. "Wife, wife, wife. Are you happy now?" And his wife said, "No. I want a castle. Go and ask the king of the fish to make us a castle." Fold your arms. He went, "I can't do that." You ready? And he ran to the side of the sea, and when he got there, do it with me. You ready? She said, "Flat fish, flounder, king of the sea, grant a wish for my wife, not for me." First he saw the crown, and then he saw the eyes, and then he saw the fins, but the king of the fish wasn't smiling now. He said, "Well, fisherman." Can you do that with me? "Well, fisherman. What do you want?" "It's not for me, it's for my wife. She wants a castle." Hands like this. If that's what she wants, then that's what she wants. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. And when he got back, draw the castle in the air with me. There was a beautiful castle, and he said to his wife, ready with your thumbs? "Oh, wife, 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 are you happy now? You've got a castle." And his wife said, "No. I want a castle that's made out of gold." Can you make gold with me? It's a gut and it shines. "I can't do that." Are you ready? And he ran to the side of the sea, and when he got there, say it with me. You ready? "Flat fish, flounder, king of the sea, grant a wish for my wife, not for me." Don't say anything. "Well, fisherman." You do that. Ready? "Well, fisherman. What do you want?" "It's not for me, it's for my wife. She wants the castle to be made of gold." Ready? If that's what she wants, then that's what she wants. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And when he got back, there was a beautiful white and wide and golden castle. Draw the castle in the air like this, with gates at the front. And he went to it and he said, "Wife, wife, wife." You do it by yourselves. Are you happy now? You've got a golden castle. And his wife said, "No. I want to be the queen. Go and ask the king of the fish to make me the queen." Fold your arms. Ready? "I can't do that." Are you ready? And he ran to the side of the sea, and when he got there, do it with me. Ready? "Flat fish, flounder, king of the sea, grant a wish for my wife, not for me." Don't say anything. "Well, fisherman." You ready? "Well, fisherman. What do you want?" "It's not for me, it's for my wife. She wants to be the queen." If that's what she wants, then that's what she wants. Thank you, thank you. And when he got back, there was his wife sitting on a great golden throne by the side of the sea, and he looked and he said, "Wife, wife, wife." What did he say? "Wife, wife. You must be happy now. You're queen of a castle that's made out of gold. Are you happy now?" And his wife said, "No. Nobody can see me. It's dark. The moon is in the sky. I want to make the sun come up when I tell it to." Do that last bit with me. When I tell it to. The fisherman looked so sad. Show me his saddest faces. That's pretty sad. And he went right down to the side of the sea, and when he got there, listen to me, he went, flatfish, flounder, king of the sea, don't grant a wish for my wife, grant a wish for... Well done, you. And the king of the fish smiled and said, well, fisherman, what did he say?
Well, fisherman.
What do you want? He said, I don't want to live in a castle. I don't want to have a wife who's queen. I just want to catch fish. If that's what you want, that's what you'll get. Make the king of the fish swim right down to the bottom of the sea, and he picked up a stone as small as your thumb, and he dropped it into the fisherman's hand. Can you do that with me? And he dropped it into his hand. Pretend you're putting it in your pocket. And when he went back, there was no castle, no gold, no queen, and he went, wife, wife, wife. Nice gentle voices, ready? Wife, wife. Are you happy now? And his wife went, yes, I'm happy now. I was very greedy. I asked for too many things. He said, it's all right. The king of the fish has given us a stone. Can you pretend to take it out of your pocket? And he looked and he said, we'll never forget the king of the fish. We'll always look at this. Oh! And when he looked at it, it was made out of gold. It was just enough to make a boat. And the very next day, she said, husband, husband, husband. Can you do that with me? Husband, husband, husband. Can I come and help you to catch fish? And the fisherman said, yes. And she would stand in the boat and she would throw the net out. Can you do that with me? She would throw the net out and he would pull it in. Sometimes he threw it out and she pulled it in. And they caught fish inside of the net and they lived happily ever after. He was a nasty boy, a strong boy, a pirate boy. And here he was, down by the side of the seaside that was surrounded by heavy rocks. He'd had to sit himself down and eat some salty fish. He had been looking for golden treasure. He'd been looking for diamonds. And on a hot, sunny autumn morning, he looked at the old treasure map that he had. He smiled to himself and said, oh, good, I will find diamonds, I will find gold. But when he followed the shape on the map, he was ready to dig up some gold and diamonds. And what did he find but some water? 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 I don't want water. I want to have gold and silver and diamonds. And when he put his hand into the water, it shimmered like diamonds, but it was sweet and tasted of fruit. He couldn't stop himself. He was going to be angry, but he started to smile. Show me the smile. He started to smile. Sweet, fruity, water. How lovely is that? And he stopped being so nasty. He stopped being so angry. Soon everyone would travel and follow the shape, the round shape on the map, and drink the water that he had found. He'd wanted gold, but he'd found water. He wanted silver, but he found sweet water. He'd wanted diamonds, but he found sweet, fruity water. And people would come and people would give him a gold coin, a silver coin, or some diamonds to taste the beautiful water that he had found. And it really was the best treasure in the world. It was a sunny winter's night, and there was still snow upon the ground, but this boy was happy. He was inside of his bungalow house. He was a big boy, and once he'd been a pirate, but he didn't know how to be a good pirate. And as he was sitting down on a tall chair, he saw a girl coming closer to him. She looked just like a princess. He wondered who she could possibly be, and as she got closer, he saw that she had, strapped to her back, a great big treasure box. The boy looked. The boy smiled. He remembered her. She'd been in the same class as him at pirate school, and she'd never been any good. But now she had a huge smile. Show me that huge smile. A huge smile. And she spoke to him. Now, he expected her to speak the way she did in pirate school. She would say, "Oh yes, I don't know if I can be a really tough pirate or not." But she opened her mouth and spoke like this. "Oh, me hearty, it's lovely to see you. I've been pirating all around the 7 seas. I've travelled from the top of the world to the bottom of the world, from the side of the world and all around. And I've stolen stuff that you would not believe. I've stolen tablets from kings, toothpicks from giants, and golden teeth from monsters that hid inside of caves. And look what I've got." And here she pulled out of this great box a trophy. You could see her name written on the side of it, and it said, "For the best pirate, the toughest pirate of 1667, it is awarded to this girl, the toughest pirate trophy." When he found out that she was the toughest pirate of all of that time ago, he looked and he said, "If you can be a pirate, I can be a pirate." He couldn't believe it. His voice had started to change. "We'll be the toughest pirate that will sail the 7 seas together." This girl, still dressed as a princess, looked and said, "We shall be that." She taught him every single thing she knew about being the toughest pirate in the world. And the two of them sailed. Can you put your hands like this? From the top of the world to the bottom of the world, from the side of the world and all around. And the very next year they became the joint winners of the trophy for the toughest pirate in the world. When the rain falls down on the fish in the sea, do they get wet like you and me? When the rain falls down on the fish in the sea, do they get wet like you and me? Do whales and fish fight? Do they go to bed at night? Do they wake up in the morning with a terrible fright? Oh, when the rain falls down on the fish in the sea, do they get wet like you and me? Oh, when the rain falls down on the fish in the sea, do they get wet like you and me? Do starfish shine? Are sharks really kind? If you ride upon a seahorse, would he mind? Oh, when the rain falls down on the fish in the sea, do they get wet like you and me? Oh, when the rain falls down on the fish in the sea, do they get wet like you and me? Do whales and fish fight? Do they go to bed at night? Do they wake up in the morning with a terrible fright? Oh, when the rain falls down on the fish in the sea, do they get wet like you and me? Oh, when the rain falls down on the fish in the sea, do they get wet like you and me? He was a pirate boy. His father and mother were pirates, the worst on all of the seas. Everyone was frightened of them, but he was happy. He knew he had lots of gold and silver that he had hidden away from his mother and father. And now on their huge boat on the top of the sea, made of wood that was smooth at the bottom and hard and splintered at the top, he was fishing for some fish that were as golden as the sun. On a dry summer's night, he looked down, and as he looked down, he could see a fish's eye that was as big as a dinner plate. It was looking at him. It was dark and green and looking at him. He thought, oh, I'd like to be able to catch that fish. He looked at the fish. The fish had a hat on its head. On the hat was a fisherman's hat with a golden band. Around its middle, it had a belt that was made out of silver. Show me the boy's smile. He smiled a huge, wide, red-lipped smile. I am going to catch that fish. And he said it out loud. Can you say it with me? I am going to catch that fish. And the fish came to the top of the water and said, oh, no, you're not. You're not going to catch me. But if you would like my hat with the golden band, if you would like my silver belt, if you want them, you can have them if you ask for them. The boy had never asked for anything in all of his life. He'd always been a pirate. He'd always stolen things. They'd always gone on pirate boats and stolen things. But if you want them, you will have to give me your mum's diamond necklace. You will have to bring it to me and I will give you the hat, the top of your head. You'll have to bring me that, do it with me. You'll have to bring me the hat and bring me those things. Oh, the boy had hidden many things inside. He'd kept them to himself. He ran underneath the ship and he came out with his mum's necklace, a magic diamond necklace. He went down by the side of the sea. He gave it to this fish. The fish took the hat, do it with me, and the boy put it on his own head. He had a grin that went from one side of the seven seas to the other. He put the belt around his waist and he looked at the fish. And as soon as it had the diamond necklace, it turned into a woman. He looked and he gasped. He said, you were a woman all along? And the woman said, yes. And now you will have to swim. So what do you mean? And he looked at his reflection. Can you put the hat on your head? He had the hat on his head and the belt around his middle, and he turned into a huge fish with a round golden eye on each side of his head, and he swam away, never to find his parents again. The woman, can you make a swim with me? She knew that was the pirate, father and mother. She didn't want to stay on board of that ship. And if you look down and if you see a round green eye, do with me, a round green eye, a hat with a golden band, and a fish with a silver belt around its middle, never, never talk to it. All he ever wanted to do was steal golden treasure, and he had heard that there were guns that could be stolen. He had been taken as a prisoner when he was a boy and placed on board of a pirate ship, but now he had his own boat. It was black and brown and made out of hard wood. He had grown into an unpleasant man, a strong man, a pirate on the seven seas. And on one dark and stormy night, he could see in the distance a giant mountain with trees that were covered with purple leaves and fruit. When he got closer, he could see that they were the size of a coconut. They'd fallen down on the ground, and all of the sticky juice had gone down upon the ground. He tried to pick one of them up, but it stuck to his hand. And as he picked it up, he saw that there on the sand there was golden treasure. Oh, he had wanted to find guns that were made out of gold, bullets that were made out of gold. But now we could see gold upon the ground. He smiled to himself. The map that he had looked at, that was a silver map, had led him to this place. And he thought he could find guns, but he didn't. He found golden coins. But when he tried to shake them off his hands, it was stuck forever. Stuck there, so he could not get it off. And he could never go into a town, for everyone would look and see all of the golden coins stuck to his hands and his fingers. And he travelled so far across the seas. And it was only when he was a very old man. Can you do this with me? One by one, do it. One by one, the coins fell from off his fingers. And you'll see him now upon his ship. And he has promised himself, can you cross your hearts like this? And he promised himself that he would never go looking for golden treasure ever again. By the side of the stormy ocean, the man was standing there. He was angry, a pirate who was so rich. But he was shouting as loud as a lion, because now he could not go out under the sea. As he walked about, he was scaring everyone with the way that he screamed and yelled and shouted. And on this dark, black, stormy night, as he was walking through the town, he looked and saw through a window that there was a golden sword lying upon a table, and beside it there was a baby girl. Now even he stopped as he looked and gasped. A golden sword lying on a table by the side of a baby girl? Even I know that that is a dangerous thing to do. It would be a shame to leave a golden sword on a table where it could do some harm to a baby girl. I will help the people. And here he pulled at his long thin beard. Can you do it with me? Here he pulled at his long thin beard. I would be helping the people inside of this house, protecting the baby girl. Leaving a golden sword by a baby girl? These people must be fools. Oh, his fingers were quick, and no longer was he angry. There was a round, red, shining smile upon his lips, and he opened the door slowly and carefully. And as soon as he opened the door, the baby girl looked at him. It wasn't as if it was just looking at his direction. It was looking into his eyes. He looked and he thought, well, I can't stay here too long. I'll pick up this golden sword and be on my way. But when he looked at the golden sword, it was attached to a belt. Even better, it was made out of cold metal. There was a clasp that was made out of glass in the middle of it. This will be fine. All of the anger was gone now. He put the sword about his belt and he looked at the baby girl, and this time she sat up. She looked straight at him. He did not like this. He'd been to many places. He was a pirate, frightened of nothing. But this baby girl sitting up and looking at him, he did not like it. And then the baby spoke. Thank you. Thank you for taking that. You will be very good to me. And this baby, show me, started to grow taller. This baby turned into a girl, turned into a woman before his very eyes, and looked, and she said, I have waited so long for someone as bad as you who would steal anything, and now you've stolen the golden sword and this belt, and now you shall have to take my place. He tried to say, what do you mean? But he could not speak. He'd become so small. Now he was the baby, lying there down on the floor with the golden belt by his side. This woman had an eye patch over one eye. She had a gun by her side that was filled with bullets. and you will have to wait until someone as bad as you comes to steal the golden belt. That pirate who had once sailed on stormy oceans, you'll find him inside of the town. A little boy, a baby boy, lying down by the side of a golden sword, waiting for someone as bad as him to try and steal the sword, so they'll turn into a baby. Running as quickly as a tiger on board of her own ship, she could see the wood had been splintered. She was a tall girl, strong and mean, and always loved to wear clean clothes. But this time she had gone too far. When she had gone into that town to take the money and steal what she could, she had hurt animals in that place. There was the blood of dogs and cats that lay upon the ground, and now she was being chased. Everyone knew her as the worst of pirates upon this land. Oh, she was a woman, and oh, she looked fine in her clean clothes, but she had a heart that was like a stone inside of her chest. And now, on the stormy night, with the wind rushing across her face, soaking her clothes, she was worried that she would be caught. For the people of the town had not let her go by herself. They had followed her. They had seen her upon the horizon, with the moon high in the sky. They knew that she was getting closer. She had taken their shining golden treasure, but they did not care. It was not that they wanted. It was the way that she had treated them, the way that she had been, the way that she had raised cutlass and sword and knife to animals. Oh, that was what had caused them now. As she was running to try and grab hold of the tiller to make sure she could get away from them, there was a huge explosion that splintered more wood at the front of her boat. These other ships were closing towards her. As her eyes got used to the darkness after the flash and brightness of the explosion, she thought it was some kind of a joke. In the distance she could see something, a tall ship that seemed to glow and glisten in all of the rain. She was superstitious. She did not like the idea that this ship, the ghost ship, was there waiting for her. If she was to get too close, if she was to run side by side with this, she knew that she would be locked on board of that ship forever. But what could she do? The wind was blowing her closer to this glowing ship. She could see the mast swaying from side to side as if it was filled with fire and light. And as the two boats were side by side, she heard the people from the town turn their boats around. If this was the way that she would end her days, then rather to end it like this than to be blown up by the people of the town. And it was now, for the first time in her life, she felt some sorrow for the way that she had killed those dogs just because they barked as she stole the treasure. As they pulled up close to each other, she saw him there, a pirate 1,000 lifetimes old, a long beard that was filled with the rain that was all about her. The only thing that she could think of doing was this. I have a map here. It will take you to treasure such as you have never seen before. Why would I need treasure? The old pirate screamed against the wind. I have nothing to live for. I have only this boat. And it was then that she thought to herself, if I give you this map, only half a map, it is broken. And if you were to come with me, I would take you far away. You could leave your boat upon the sea and you would travel with me, for I know where the other half of the map is. She couldn't believe it. This old pirate, he had a smile underneath all of the wet hair at his beard. And it was as if he floated from one boat to the next and landed by her side. We'll see this treasure when the time comes. And they did travel together. Always she would see him in the darkness, his foot stamping upon the ground, his glow in the air. But when they came to the place Well, the other part of this treasure map was, it seemed that even as a ghost, he loved to be surrounded by gold. And you'll see her now. She will tell her tales. And she knew that everyone knew her with the clean clothes upon her back, but travelling so far to find the other half of the map had worn all of her clothes old and dirty. She did not get that gold for herself. She had given it away so that she could live. And you will see her now, still alive, but with the dirtiest of clothes upon her back and a small thin smile upon her lips. She knew that she had come onto the land for the first time in her life. She had never stepped upon dry land to try and find the treasure that was in a great house in the middle of the forest. And she'd got it. She'd got the shining gold, and it was in a bag that was close to her belly, and she hid it underneath this dress. Oh, she'd gone disguised in a long-sleeved dress. She was as strong as a tiger and not afraid to kill. She was a woman pirate. When you looked at her, you could tell that she was not beautiful, but now, by the side of a shallow, fast-flowing river, once she'd gone past the rocks, she'd found a place to hide behind a bush that had leaves that were as dark as emeralds. It matched the colour of her dress. And now, as the rainstorm started to get less on this dark and gloomy night, the bright moon was fighting its way through the clouds. On her dress, she had silver bells that would rattle as she moved. Her companion, one of her shipmates, who had proved himself to be handy with a sword, who seemed to be the worst of all of her crew, whispered and said, "Let me cut those bells from off the dress. We'll hide them. Nobody will find you. Otherwise, when you move, they'll be able to hear you." He'd pretended to be bad, but he was always as good, and he had waited for his time to get to this place where he could take this treasure from her. He cut the bells from off the dress, but did he leave them in one spot? No, he did not. As they ran further down by the side of the shallow, fast-flowing river, he left them by the side for those who were following them. Or when she had killed the man inside of that house, they had all run with their sharp swords, with their knives. She watched him. She could see him laying the silver bells down to lead them towards them. She did not hesitate for a single heartbeat. She took her own sword from out of the sleeve of her dress and pierced his heart. "I knew all along that you were trying to fool me. I knew all along that you were not the bad man that you pretended to be. I knew that you had a good heart. And now they'll find you with the bells by your side." She ran as fast as she could, no longer with the silver bells tinkling by her side, but she wondered to herself, how could she get past this river? She reached down towards a diamond-studded, ragged-handled silver knife. She thought to herself, what can I do? And the men and the women and the horses and the dogs were all getting closer to her. In the distance, she could see her ship on the horizon by the light of the bright moon. They all came towards her with their sharp swords. She didn't want to step into this river in case it swept her away. But as she could see the point of a sword coming towards her, she looked and she jumped, thinking that she would take her chance. Even though the gold would drag her down to the bottom of this river, she jumped into the river and fell less than a hand's depth. She thought that this was wide and deep. She did not know that it was a shallow river. She'd looked at the river by the light of the moon on this dark and gloomy night and had thought that it was deep and dark. Oh, they captured her. Everyone came out, and they kept the gold about her waist as they watched her hang. If she'd thought, if she'd tried, if she'd looked and stepped into the water, she could have run down the river to the sea and swam to her own boat. But she didn't think. She just thought that the water was deep. Hiding behind the tall Wales dark rock, this man was there. Misery was infecting his blood. It was good because he was not tall. Strong, oh yes, but he could hide right out of sight of everybody. Here, by these smooth rocks by the side of the forbidding Atlantic Ocean, he could see his crooked boat. The wind and the weather had been so terrible, and now it was beached, and he knew that he would have to fix it so that he could go back out onto the ocean. And as the stormy black clouds were gusting about him on this winter's night, by the edge of the forbidding Atlantic Ocean and hiding behind the smooth rocks, he was there. He was in this place, hiding far away from the people who could see his boat. For his boat had been broken upon the waves of the Atlantic Ocean, and he'd landed it on a beach. And he thought that he could see someone or something out in the water, and fear seemed to tap him upon his shoulder. He was a miserable man. His blood was infected with the misery, not tall, but muscled. And as he was there, hiding from the storms and the black clouds that were gusting about him on this winter's night, all he wanted to do was to go out and find another way of being a pirate. He might not have been tall, but he was strong, and everyone feared him. Just the very mention of his name would put fear in people's blood. But as he looked out towards the water, he did not see a man, a boy, a woman, a girl, or a boat, but he saw something or someone. What he saw first was hair that seemed to be spiked, and it rose above the waves. And then there were wild horns that stuck out from the water, and it was a beast. He thought to himself, perhaps I could hide forever behind these rocks. He made himself as small as he could, and hoped that the beast could not see him. But it raised its head, its body, its strong neck, and smelt the air, and tasted his smell in the air. And it started to move towards him. It slipped and slithered. Sleek as a snake, it came ever closer to him. What could he do? He saw in the distance that there was a weak wooden hut. He thought that perhaps it had been used by fishermen to try and hide from the terrible gusts of the Atlantic Ocean. What he did not know was others had been in this place, and they would use it to hide. For they would have lined it with fish to hide their smell, but now as he ran towards it, he could hear, he could feel that great beast coming closer to him. And he got inside of this wooden hut. It raised its mouth as wide as a door, high in the air, and crashed down upon it. He thought that this would be the end of his life. But the strangest of all things was this. This hut was made of a wood that he had never felt underneath his hard and horny hands. And this wood had caught inside of this beast's throat, and it lay down and fell dead upon the ground. He looked at himself as if he had won a great victory. But it was as he reached out and touched one of its horns, he thought to himself, this is stronger than any wood that I have ever seen. This will fix my boat. He took it. Oh, he might have been small, but he was strong. He took it and fixed his boat. He had to drag it. He had to drag it down and into the water. And as he started to think to himself, this will be the finest of all things. I shall travel from the top of the world to the bottom of the world, and each and every one of these 7 seas. But when he took the tiller and tried to steer it so that he could go to where he wanted to go, it was as if this horn that was in the base of the boat started to steer him away from where he wanted to go, where pirating was best. No matter what he did, it dragged him towards a town that was filled with people who knew him well, small and muscled and miserable. As he stood upon the gallows, he could feel that rope about his neck. Oh, it was as if this beast's horn had dragged him to his doom. He looked about him and prayed that this would be quick. He'd been marooned, abandoned by his so-called shipmates. But when you looked into the eyes of this man, you could tell that he was mean. He was short, stubby, shambolic. Not one single piece of his clothing fitted him well. But he'd been sent to this island, this tropical island with its rough sand scratching at his feet, because he would not tell them where they could find treasure. He was a small man, he was sharp, and he would try and keep every secret he could to himself. But as he'd been placed upon this island, left by his shipmates, he was searching enthusiastically amongst the towering trees, and with a heavy Caribbean wind whispering through the leaves, they looked and sounded like spies to him. But the blistering noon sun was battering upon his skin. It was constant, never-ending, always at his back, and he thought that he was going to die in this place. But as the sun reached its highest point, there was something that shone blood red at the base of one of these trees. He could not believe his luck. He licked at his lips, he wrung at his hands, and he saw that there, caught amongst the thin roots of these tall trees, there was a ruby the size of a man's fist. He took his sharp pirate's cutlass and started to dig at the tree, and sure enough, out it came, the size of a man's fist, a ruby, but what good would it be to him? I've told you, and I know that you know this, but trees in the tropics do not have the deepest of roots. And as he'd been cutting at one tree, he could see that there was another, a tree that was thinner than the rest. And as the breeze blew, it toppled over. And there he saw a chest that was filled with emeralds and rubies and sapphires and diamonds. But what good would they be to him here, far away from his home, far away from anything to eat? He could not fill his belly with emeralds, and he sat there and cried salty tears on all of these great gems. The next morning, he heard a sound that made his heart race. He saw that a fisherman who had been to this island many times before was landing his catch, and this would be a way that he could get out of this place. He could not fight him. He was short, he was stubby, he was shambolic. And this fisherman had the strength of the sea at his shoulders. For once there was not that mean look in his eyes. Here he walked up to the fisherman, who was astonished to see someone else on his island, and he made a bargain. I shall give to you half of the treasure that I have found on this island, if you will take me far away from here. The fisherman was used to catching the great treasures of the sea, the silver darlings that swam beneath the salty waves. But what they did not know was they had been watched. Oh, his shipmates knew that he knew where there was treasure, and they had made it look as if they had abandoned him, but they had been watching him from in amongst the trees. Many years later, two skeletons were found down by the side of the sea and under the rough sand. One of them was tall and strong, but with a cutlass in his belly. The other was short and stubby, with a huge ruby clasped in his bony fingers. In the darkness, he was planning the way that he was going to find more gold. Here in this village where he'd been taken in by all of the people, by the side of the sour salty sea, he had sat there and he had taken their friendship, but now he was thinking of how he could steal from them. Oh, he was a boy, a strong boy, who had travelled over all of the 7 seas, richer than anyone would ever know, for he kept all of his gold in between the planks of his boat. He had stolen money from every one of the continents that he could find, but he did not care. No one thought that he had money, for the gold was built inside of his boat. And as he looked, he scuffed his feet as he was planning. He was starting to get so excited that he would not sit still, and his feet were scuffing on the wood of the floor in this place. A gale force wind had started to tipple his boat and made it unstable. And now those shattering winds had brought him to this shore, and still he was going to steal from each and every one of them, after all of the kindness that they had given him. And on a bitter autumn day, when the scorching sun was trying to fight through, he realised he had been here a full season. This was not what he had planned, and now he thought that he was going to leave this place. He reached into his pocket, and he could feel the piece of gold that he kept with him, just in case something might happen. It was in the shape of a horseshoe. But if the truth be known, he had never really seen that many horses, for the whole of his life had been spent upon the sea and within boats. A stranger walked past his window and started to walk towards the trees, and it was only as this scorching sun that was fighting with the clouds that he saw that he had about him a golden belt. He saw the reflection, even in amongst all of the emerald trees that surrounded this place. He did not hesitate for a single heartbeat. He spoke to himself, "That shall be mine." A boy who had known what it was to steal almost as soon as he had learned how to walk. He did not stop himself. He looked, he watched, he followed this stranger with his golden belt. And he thought, this is why I have kept this golden horseshoe for so long. It will show me a way of making riches. Whoever this man is, he cannot harm me. I am as tall as a man. I am stronger than a man. I shall take it and I will have it. But this man, he'd never seen him before, a stranger. He watched him as he was walking through the trees, and as the boy was about to raise his cutlass high in the air and strike him down dead, this man turned around, and he did not move, and his voice, deep, dark, cold and hollow, in that empty place spoke. "Oh, I've had better men than you try to kill me. But if there's something that you want, easy riches, I will have something that is better than this belt that I have here." And here the man reached into his pocket. "I have a map that will show you everything that you would ever need, more gold than you could walk around in 10 full days." The boy licked at his lips in anticipation. A map, you say? Oh yes, you can have it. The man reached inside of his cloak and pulled out a silver plate. Engraved upon it was a map of an island. It had all of the things that the boy would need. He thanked him. He took it. "You're sure that you are happy with this map?" The boy said, "Of course I am." He took this map. He followed its instructions, and it led him to each and every one of his enemies. They sat there waiting, ready to watch and ready to see all of the things that he had stolen from them. That man had been brought into this village, for even though this young boy had looked as if he was kind, they knew the terrible things that he had plotted and planned. He brought revenge for the village. The boy's boat was never seen. But sometime someone will look, and in amongst all of the rotted wood, they will find planks not made of wood, but of gold. Tutankhamun was still a pharaoh. He was nothing more or less than a boy. But on a night that filled his heart with fright, this man was standing there. He knew he had money. Everyone knew him in that town as being rich. You could see that he had worked hard when he was a boy, for he had muscles beneath his clothes. But here, by the side of the Nile, in this busy mud brick town, no one knew that he had made his money by being a pirate upon the River Nile, stealing figs and barley. Not one single person in all of this place knew that he was a pirate, that he stole. They just thought that he was a fine figure of a man who would sell his food in the market. When his parents had died, he'd been left upon the street and he had no money. He'd been so poor that he vowed that he would never be poor again. But now, He had by his belt a bottle that was filled with sour food. He always liked the taste, for it would never make him smile too wide, never let anyone become his friend. But he knew that the slaves would be inside of the place the very next morning. They would be there in the shop that was covered with a cloth to keep the flies away from the fine sweet figs that he could not bear, for he only liked those things that tasted of salt upon his lips, teeth and tongue. And as they would walk, the sand would scuff upon the ground. But now he looked about him. He couldn't believe his luck. He had just come back from a raid, and he'd brought this great boat back filled with figs and barley, and there was one thing that he could not recognise. It was wrapped in paper, placed inside of a golden box. And for once in his life, show me, a smile was upon his lips. Show me, he had a smile upon his lips, and thought to himself, I shall try and keep this for myself. And he went to his bed, thinking that no one knew that he was a thief and a pirate. But he forgot. He'd arrived back so late at night. And the next morning, everyone looked in that shop, and there, in amongst the figs and the barley, there was a box that had something inside of it, a smaller box, filled with honey and dedicated to the Pharaoh. They knew him then, instantly, as a thief. Perhaps it would have been better if he had died, but once people knew that he was a pirate, he could not walk in those streets. And it made him remind himself of what it was like to be poor, for people stole from him as he had stolen these things in the first place. You might find him walking about. The only thing that shows that he was once rich is a bottle that has hieroglyphs upon its side and talks of a boy who had made himself into a man, a pirate who stole but died poor.